Welcome to Tori's Tea Time Talk with God. Good morning and welcome to Tori's Tea Time Talk with God. I am so glad to meet you this morning and just to bask in the goodness of who God is and what He's doing for us and to spend this day with you. So today is Thursday. And it is November 3rd. The week is moving along quite well. And hopefully you are being effective and doing many things to bring down the kingdom of darkness as you come into the kingdom of light and enlightenment of the kingdom of light, which is a continuous basis. So today I want to start with sharing what type of tea I'm actually drinking. Since we've been doing this, I've basically been drinking green tea. Yesterday I branched off and did a little something spicy just to kick it up a little bit and did some cinnamon chai spice tea. But today I'm doing billberry tea. And I want to talk about billberry tea because we haven't gotten to day 3 where God created all these herb yielding seed after its kind. But I want to talk about billberry tea because there are some very beneficial attributes to billberry tea. And I'll probably be including this because I drink green tea for the very same reason. You know, it helps to build antioxidants in your body so that you can remove free radicals. You know, free radicals are those things that are like the weeds that Satan plants in the midst of our garden of wheat. Those things that are meant to remove nutrition and things that are beneficial from the midst of your body, not add to them. And so, green tea is very good for that. It's also very helpful for really helping you to kind of perk up and wake up. I'm not one who typically do well with caffeine. You know, there are some people who can drink caffeine and it just brings them on a whole new level of perkiness. Unfortunately, that does not happen for me. Whatever the imbalance is that makes caffeine pretty much ineffective for doing the perking you up thing is my issue. It doesn't do that for me. It more or less makes me crash and burn more than perk up and be ready for my day. So I drink tea instead. And so today I'm drinking bilberry tea. And the benefits, there are 10 benefits of bilberry tea that if any of these apply to you, you may want to consider adding it as a part of your daytime talks with God and as a way of getting that tea in your body on a daily basis, because oftentimes we eat based on what brings pleasure to us, not based on what brings benefit to us. I also sweeten my teas with stevia and only 1 leaf. I mean, because again, the whole purpose is there are other ways I can get my sweeteners in a day. And I think that if everything is really about appealing to our taste buds, you know, then we're going to miss out on the benefits of the bitters. And there are some benefits to some of the bitter things that happen in our life. Even if we don't see it at the time that we're experiencing it, there are some health benefits to incorporating bitters to your life, whether it's the herbs that we put in our, or seasonings that we may put in some of our foods or drinks, whether it's things like adding chia seeds to your smoothie. You know, there's benefits to things that don't necessarily appeal to our taste buds, but that our body recognizes as food and medicine for us. So the 10 benefits of bilberry tea is: one, atherosclerosis. So if you're dealing with issues of the heart, you may want to incorporate some bilberry tea into your routine. Improve digestion, and that's a big one for me because after a while I do digestive enzymes, and apparently this is what's being promoted for one to do on a continuous basis, regardless of what their diet is. Anything that can help improve digestion, because 50% of your immunity is in your gut. So the more you can help make everything move that's moving in, out, and to aid in that digesting process and all of the things that happen as we do digest, from the adipose that we get from just chewing down to the esophagus, because digestion begins at the tongue. Before it even gets down to the esophagus, you are already starting digestion when you're getting those juices to flow, saliva to flow through your mouth, and as it begins to incorporate that food into that process, is making it digestible for every other part of your body that needs that nutrition. So number 3, it cures inflammation. That's wow. 4, it cures a sore throat. So if you wake up in the morning, your throat don't feel quite right, chalk down you some bilberry tea. Number 5, improved night vision. Okay, so to know that, hey, there's something I can eat other than carrots that can help with my vision, it's always awesome. 6, skin health. And then ladies, that is a biggie for a lot of us. We want to make sure our skin is soft and healthy and everything is moving as it ought to. 7, anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial. 8, prevents blood clots. That has been a major thing as of lately, things that people have to look into, have issues. So maybe next time when you're because deep vein thrombosis is what? It's blood clot that happens in the leg during, for people who are constantly stagnant. If you travel a lot and you fly, maybe, pack in your bag, a few tea bags of bilberry. Prevention of colon cancer. Wow. And number 10, it lowers blood sugar and cholesterol. So, it's a lot of benefits to bilberry tea, and it's a very good tea. You want to make sure that it's hot, unlike green tea, that you can actually harm the benefits of your tea if you make green tea too hot. Bilberry tea requires your tea to be boiling hot, and that you allow it to slowly seep, and then all those juices come through. And so I did put boiling hot water in my tea, and I let it sit. Okay, so now we're going to get into the word. We left off last week with discussing discussing what God did on day 1. Not last week, excuse me, but yesterday we left off with that. So we finished day 1, and so now we're moving on to day 2 to see what exciting things he did on the second day of creation, and likewise where we should be in our walk as we walk through the days of creation. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. So I want to, and I'm going to read the last verse of day 2, and then we're going to go back and discuss it. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. So there's a couple of things I want to point out here about division, because, and I did a study on this before, because oftentimes we want to put division in the category of Satan, but sometimes God divides things. Sometimes it's a part of the plan. Division is a part of the plan. And really, when we look at the word holy, which means to sanctify, it means also to set apart. And it's important to notice what's being set apart. Now, granted, there are a lot of things that have yet to be created when we're talking about what occurred on day 2. But if we look at what firmament is, if we look at what divides the waters above from the waters beneath, and we look at that, at the earth, at what's on the earth, on the dirt, on all these things that's there. We're talking about day 2, so we probably not even talking about the same level of pollution that we see on the earth today. But the bottom line is, any of us would admit that if we had to drink from water, we would prefer to drink the water that is from above than the water that's from beneath. Not too many people will stick their mouth or their tongue into a mud puddle, but most of us have at some point opened our mouth wide and just threw our hands back, beholding the glory of what God has created, seeing and being in awe of the beauty of what God has created for us, and just taking in the fresh air and the dew and the rain that comes from Him. So you've probably tasted rainwater. And again, we are talking about day 2 versus today, where there's no telling what all has been thrown up into the sky and polluted even the rainwater we may have today versus what even our grandparents probably remember. But the bottom line is, regardless of any of that, I think we all can agree that I would first drink rainwater before I drink mud water, right? So here's the thing about the division as it relates to what God does and desires for us in setting us apart from the rest of the world, is that He wants us to be like that water that's above. He sets us apart so that we can be like the stars that shine above. If you look at all of the things that He shows us in Scripture and throughout Scripture, not just here as we're looking at what He's doing on day 2, but if we look at Yeshua, who came from above, you'll see the references to that when he was baptized, a dove in the shape, something from the sky in the shape of a dove, the Holy Spirit in the shape of a dove came down from above to sanction who He is. We are told to keep our hearts and attention on that which is above and not beneath. All of these different references. Why? Because He is revealing the distinction between His people. Prophetically, day 2 reveals the distinction between His people, those who are from above and those who are from the earth. And our being able to have that comparison is extremely important so that we can know what the goal is. So see, there's a purpose. A lot of times people think, God being who He was, He could have just not created the tree of knowledge of good and evil for us to eat from, so that He could have just taken that off, completely off the table. Or He, why would He allow Satan to come in the midst of the garden and all these other kinds of things that we may ask questions about, because God is sovereign, right? But in His sovereignty, there are certain things He did in His creation of us. And it's certain things that he put in place before us for a reason. And God wants us just like our parents wants us. He wants us to choose him. To, and here's the distinction between Adam and Eve, the first two who walked the face of the earth, versus how we come into the world. We come through the womb. We are begotten of our parents versus being a full grown mature man and woman who's walking the face of the earth. And so in order to really understand the mind of God, you have to put yourself with your children at the position of now they're grown. Now they're in their 30s versus they're in their, they're just being born. They're 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old, and so on. We're not talking about where they need and require every stage of your life, need you at every stage of their life. We're at a point now where whatever you put in them, they should be mature at this point to understand those things and to embrace that you as their parent have always led them in the right direction. Something that is cultivated through the years prior to them making their own decisions. But it would be the equivalent of a parent trying, hey, as a parent, you probably told your kids don't do this. You probably told your 30-year-old kids this is probably not a good idea. But it would be the equivalent of you basically keeping plugs in your wall, because, and so therefore it's like you going to your, in other words, it's like you going to your son's home, a 30-year-old man, fully mature, no mental or health issues, but complete. And you're going into his home and he has no children, but for his benefit, you're putting plugs in the wall to try to prevent him from sticking something in there and where he could be electrocuted. Right? Would you necessarily need to do that? Or should you even do that for a fully grown man? Of course not. Your expectation is that from years of being in your presence, from years of you telling him or showing him that there's dangers to this, in whatever form you've done it, that there's danger to you just sticking things inside of a plug in your wall. That you can get electrocuted. So you don't have to confirm that. That child's never tested that before, but it's like you telling them, at 30 years old, it's not a good idea. You shouldn't, if you stick, some kind of, if you stick that knife in the plug in your wall, then it's going to lead to death. Should you have to do more? Should you have to completely remove the option? How far should we go? Should we say, hey, you shouldn't live in a house that has electricity in it because of the dangers of it, so therefore we're going to remove that even as an option for you, and so you're going to have to go back to the Stone Ages and just use candles? And mind you, you're telling this to your 30-year-old. So this is what I want you to think about, because oftentimes people, I think, want to find some kind of way to blame the sovereign one for decisions that humanity makes in opposition to God, as though he should have removed the possibility of someone making the wrong choice, when in actuality what is actually being proved in a person making the wrong choice is that they're not trusting in the one who have their best interest at heart. There was absolutely no reason why Adam and Eve should have trusted the enemy. If you really flip it over on the other side, if you look at it from the other perspective, what exactly did the serpent do that would allow them to trust that what he was saying was right? God had put them in the midst of a garden. a perfect garden. He had provided everything they needed for their survival before they even got there. He had even provided a helpmate for Adam. So everything that he had gotten from God was good. It was for him. It was beneficial to him. So the real question should be, why would you accept, why would you even entertain counsel from someone who provided absolutely nothing to you, nothing for you? I think that should be the real question. And it's the same battle we battle. That's why it says the Bible is so applicable to your everyday living, because it's the same battle you battle with your children. When you send them to school, and even though you raise them before they start kindergarten, before they start elementary school, middle school, high school, whatever it is, whatever kind of school they're in, and people who have absolutely done nothing to attribute to them. That's why it says foolishness is bound in the heart of the child. So what you do when you put a child in the midst of 10 to 15 other foolish children is multiplied foolishness. So now little Tommy at school can say something contradictory to what you told your child, and your child accepts what little Johnny says over what you, their parent, who've been looking out for their best interests, keeping them alive, by the way, for however many years, up to that point where they decide they're going to allow a classmate to supersede your counsel. It would be the equivalent of that. Why would you listen to Johnny, who tells you you can stick something in there and you'll be perfectly fine, over your parent who says, no, this is going to kill you? I mean, we can go on and on with examples. I used to hear, I think of things like Deuteronomy 28 and Leviticus 26, where you have a list of blessings and curses. And the question is often, there's only 14 blessings, great blessings, by the way, that God gives if you keep his commandments. But there are like from 15 to 68 of verses. From verse 15 to verse 68 are the curses if you don't keep them. Why so many more curses than there are blessings? And I submit to you, because we need more, because the whole point is the curses should be so undesirable to us that we will do everything we can to avoid them. That is the benefit of it. I mean, just imagine if it was flipped. Okay, all these were blessings, and there's only about 14 things that could go wrong if you don't obey me. You might be, although I admit clearly what humanity has proven is that even with all the curses that will come over you for not obeying God, it apparently seems to not stop. But God did it both ways if you think about it. He gave you where you had a plentiful of blessing and only one thing that could bring a curse, which is one tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You had all the trees that you can eat from except for one. And then, he flipped it for us and said, okay, well, maybe it'll be different. Right? Let's see how they respond to this. Let me sweeten the pot a different way. And so how do you sweeten the pot a different way? Okay, so now instead of giving you plentiful things that are blessings to you, I'm going to give you few things that are blessings to you if you do what I say. And I'm going to make it so undesirable for you not to do what I say by giving you all these things that are weeds in your garden that you have to contend with. So, you would think what would happen is man would say, gosh, this is a lot more work. Why do I want to contend with these weeds? I don't want to contend with these weeds. So therefore, I'm going to do all that's going to produce more wheat and get rid of the weeds. prevent the weeds from coming into the midst of my garden. But do we do that? We don't. So I know there's a lot to say out of the whole division thing, but here's the whole point of division. Division is a clear and dividing line that makes it very clear who is for God and who is against God. There are some benefits to the division. Because otherwise, if you lump everyone, and I hear people do that often, we're all children of God. If that's so, then the word of God told us a lie. Because I'm going to show you where he says, some people are the children of the devil. First John 3:10. Let's go to it. And it says, in this, the children of God are manifest. In what? Let's go back and see. So here we go. He's talking directly to what we're talking about. And he's telling you what? Something from the beginning. So let's start at verse 8. Let's start at verse 7. It says, little children, let no man deceive you. He that doeth righteousness is righteous, even as he is righteous. He that committeth sin is of the devil, not of God, of the devil. He, which is a person, for the devil sinneth from when? From the beginning. For this purpose the Son of God was manifested, that he might destroy the works of the devil. Whosoever is born of God doth not commit sin, for his seed remaineth in him, and he cannot sin, because he is born of God. In this the children of God are manifest, and the children of the devil. Whosoever doeth not righteousness is not of God, neither he that loveth not his brother. So God is clearly making a distinction. He's making a division. He's showing you so that you can know who is from above and who is not from above, who is from beneath, who is on the menu of the serpent and who is off of the menu of the serpent. For this is the message that ye heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. So folks, here's the thing that you should know. That no good tree can bring forth bad fruit. Neither can any bad tree bring forth good fruit. He is letting you know you're going to know the tree by its fruit. You're going to know if it's of righteous, because they're going to eat from the right trees. They're not going to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They're going to obey. They're going to do that which is right in the eyes of God. And those are the children of God. So we are not all God's children. There is a separating line. There is a point of separation. And day 2 marks that point of separation. And so that's why I said it's so key that you have to be born into this kingdom. Day 1 is all about being born again, coming out of the kingdom of darkness and into the kingdom of light. And day 2 is about sanctifying yourself. In other words, I'm no longer going to eat from off of the wrong trees. I'm no longer going to play and drink from the muddy water and allow that to be a part of me. I am going to drink from the fountain of life that comes from above. And this is further identified in our being baptized. Because when you're baptized or you're immersed, the purpose of that immersion is so that you can identify in a death, burial, and resurrection of Yeshua, which is why it's so critical, and it's the second thing you do after you're being born again. Because it's about separating yourself. It's not just from the perspective of, what's the purpose of any time water comes into your body? It's to clean you, correct? But deeper than that, because some cleaning needs to take place internally, not simply externally. And so what happens in that immersion is that you are now being separated. You are now identifying that, hey, I am dead in Christ. I am buried with him. This old man who belongs to the ground, this old man which is a child of the devil, no longer exists. I am now born of the seed of God. I mean, if you look at it from the perspective of when you born the first time, what do? You come through your mother's womb. You come from out of darkness. You come from a place where it's like you're being immersed constantly and protected. Although for 9 months, this is just basically less than 1 minute experience. However, in that experience is everything in identifying that you are no longer a child of Satan. Yes, you are no longer in the kingdom of darkness. You no longer identify with the man that is leading towards death. But you have now identified with the man that is leaning towards life. David said something in Psalm 51. It's one of my favorite scriptures. And it says, to create in me a clean heart and to renew a right spirit within me. An immersion is like a physical manifestation of that very prayer, because you're going into an experience now that is saying that it's not all about my natural descendancy anymore. It's about who I am in God and who God is in me. And so day 2 is all about that immersion experience. And it's a very essential, can't move on without completing this step, prerequisite to what's going to happen next. Everything God did in the creation of the world, it is orderly. You don't go to step 3 without doing step 2, or in this case day 3 without going through the process of day 2, or day 4 without having what's done on day 3, and so forth and so on. So everything is always moving and developing us into being that complete man that we are called to be. And this is why it's so very important that you always start from the beginning. And we also see the second part of this, and I'll make it quick and move forward, is we see this prophetically in the end, because there's some division that is taking place. When you read the book of Revelation, you are actually hearing that from the churches to the trumpets, from the churches to the seals to the trumpets to the wrath, to the bowls of wrath. Every single one of those 7s, you're seeing a consistent level of separation taking place. Even within the churches, you're seeing where he's talking to the messenger, the angel of the church. You're seeing where he's talking to those who are wayward, and he's saying, hey, this is what you need to do, otherwise this is going to happen. He's talking to those who are in it, but they're not really participating in it. But he's saying, hey, you continue the course, this is what you can expect. So he is drawing the line, revealing where people are, whether they're from above in their walking in righteousness, like 1 John 3 we were reading, or whether or not they're below in their walk, in identifying with the devil and his in his army. So we keep reading. We get to the seals. We get to the seals, and we see where he's, a third part of this is being destroyed. He's separating his people and bringing them to certain places, and he's revealing his people and putting them in certain positions. So you're seeing a constant division of the wheat and the tares that are taking place on all levels. And it doesn't stop there. It goes from the trumpets, it goes from the seals to the trumpets. You seeing that? Then you see a fourth part of this is destroyed. Then you see you seeing the separation. What can stay, what cannot. What has the mark of God, what does not. What to do with that which has the mark of God, what to do with that which does not. And then so forth and so on. Then you get to the bowls of wrath. And you get, what's happening to whoever's left behind. If there's any, so you have all of this taking place. And then you have the resurrections. You have the resurrection of the righteous, and then you have the resurrection unto condemnation. Again, the further separation. That which is above is being further divided from that which is beneath. And that schism is becoming wider and deeper. So we see prophetically that God is showing us what is happening in the beginning is also happening in the end. And so that is it for today. Tomorrow we will get on to day 3. I guess, I try to give everyone something to get kind of ponder and meditate on as they're going through their day. But I want you to pray and to really pursue God, to find out what areas of your life are leaning towards the light, and ask the Lord to help you to cultivate that, to continue to increase that, what you can do. He wants you to walk in his will, not just what you can do, but just you want to constantly be in connection with the Father and know what is his desire for you in every day. I think we try to take our walk with God on chunks way bigger. Every day was significant to God, and he took time in every day. He wasn't thinking about what he was going to do on day 4 in day 3. He was focusing on what he was doing in that day. And so it's very important to be present in every day that God gives us to breathe air. Because what he has for you in the season of today may not be available or accessible or even required for the season of tomorrow. And you don't want to be so busy planning out your season of tomorrow that you don't get done what he has for you to do today. And that's why it's so important that in the Lord's Prayer, he admonishes us by saying to request of God to give us this day our daily bread. Because if I'm thinking about bread for tomorrow, tomorrow might even be here for the bread. You hear me? But if I'm thinking about that bread for tomorrow, what am I missing about the bread he giving me today? And so it's important that as we take each day in each segment, and in some segments that we may take longer than a day because of the time frame we're working in. God did this stuff in 24 hours. We trying to break this down in like 30 minutes to an hour. So the bottom line is, as we're going through each day, we need to be present in the day that he has given us. We need to be sipping on the tea for that day, not thinking about the tea for tomorrow. Okay, what cup of tea I'm gonna drink tomorrow? No, we need to be thinking, enjoying, sipping, and absorbing all of the nutrients that he's giving us for today. Because it's cumulative. Every day builds on the other. And if I don't get what I need for today, I can't necessarily think that I'm going to really benefit from tomorrow's, because I'm behind, right? So, today our daily bread is simply this. We need to know whether we are a child of light or a child of darkness. We need to know whether or not we're the children of God living in righteousness, or we're the children of the devil living in wickedness. We need to be able to identify that as well, not just in ourselves, but in those who are around us. Are we gravitating towards light? Because light gravitates towards light. If you're being pulled into the kingdom of darkness, then you need to ask yourself, is there something in me that darkness has a hold of? And I mean, we all got to ask that question. And then if there is, we need to endeavor to seek the kingdom of light, seek God to expose that in us and to remove that from us. Because ultimately, that is not what we want to be. We don't want to be of those who drinking the water from beneath. We don't want that. We want to be those who desire the water from above, and who have drunk of the water from above. So, let Psalms 51 minister to you today. I was just reading the whole chapter, but definitely the part where he says, create in me a clean heart and renew a right spirit within me. Make that a part of our everyday process, because we are constantly there's areas of dirt that we have yet to even reach, that the world has placed upon us from years and years of toiletry and living in a cesspool, where the tea of the day is talking and cutting people down, or belittling people, or maligning people. And you know, we if we're gravitating towards the dirt and the dust and the things that are devilish, we cannot say that we are children of light, because darkness can't even exist in the presence of light. That's why it has to be separated. That's why there's a day part and there's a night part. So if we are children of the day, then we should not desire the things of the night. We should not desire the things of darkness. We should instead shed light on those things. That's what the moon does. It invades the darkness. It doesn't allow the darkness to invade it. That's the difference. Well, I'm about done with my tea, and we're about done with our lesson for today. I hope that this has blessed you. It certainly has blessed me, and giving me things to think about in how I continue to cultivate this love walk, and walk in this sort of truth that is being revealed as we go through every day of the week. So, shalom.